You're tuned in to Fork Podcast. This week we'll talk to Matt Socholotiuk, former athlete who reinvented himself multiple times and stayed on top of his game.
I think it's important to whatever you do is to get absolutely obsessed with it. So for me, like when I was ready to do MMA, that was the only thing that I ever focused on.
Hey there, this is Sean Chris Lewis on Fork Podcast, and today I am here with my man, Matt Socholotiuk. I love that last name, dude, and I bet you hear that all the time. Matt, I want to thank you for coming in here today, and if there's anybody who really inspires me, somebody who has overcome a lot of adversity, I would say you're the guy. And listen, I'm looking really forward to hearing all about you, and I'm looking forward to what you have to share with us here today. So, Matt, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So a little about me. I'm 30 years old, originally from Brantford, Ontario. I moved here to Montreal about 6 years ago with ambitions of fighting full-time. Career path kind of changed, so now I am a personal trainer and boxing coach, and hopefully in the near future decide to open my own gym. Wow,
that's the ambition, dude, and I know it's all going to happen because you've shared even just the tip of the iceberg with me in the few conversations that I've had. And if anybody can make anything happen, it's going to be you. Listen, I want to ask you, Matt, like there's something I want to jump in right to with you because it really has been on my mind since we first talked, which was, how does a guy reinvent himself so frequently? So not so frequently, I shouldn't say that, but how does a guy go through life turbulence as you've experienced and just, you don't seem to stay down, man?
I think it's important to have positive influences in your life. Like for me, it was a lot to do with my family, having a strong mom and dad and kind of seeing them. They really didn't say much. I kind of learned through their actions more than anything else. I also think it's important not to marry to anything that you try to define yourself by. So I think it's important to always continue to keep changing, keep growing, keep evolving, and to kind of have new ideas and new outlook on life, and just kind of, I guess for a boxing term, roll with the punches. Yeah.
But you weren't always. You said you came to Montreal to start your fighting career. But what were you originally doing before you came to Montreal?
So originally, it was always about football growing up. Only started playing football when I was in grade 9. I didn't want to play because of the tight pants. But obviously that changed. Yeah, so then I was able to play football, went pretty far, went to the University of Waterloo, where I had my first year. And then, unfortunately, I got suspended for 4 years for steroids and human growth hormone, first person in North America. And then after that, I decided, I was still young, 21 years old. I wanted to continue to be an athlete. I wasn't ready to, move on and do the workforce and work a 9 to 5. I knew I had something else to give. So I always boxed and did wrestling in the summertime. So I decided, what, I just want to try my luck at fighting. And Montreal was the best place, being at TriStar Gym. So I decided to move here and fight full time.
And that even worked out quite well for you in the end.
Yeah, so I ended up having 5 professional fights and doing quite well. Also a bunch of amateur fights. I did a bunch of wrestling tournaments. I was the 86 kilo Quebec champion in 2017. So I just took what I knew from football and athletic ability and the hard work, and I just applied that to MMA.
Well, listen, you just talked about being in football, and this was the story that jumped out at me. And I really want to be clear, Matt. I want to hear about that original story in Waterloo and your suspension, but I didn't want you to have the impression that I wanted to have you on my podcast to only talk about that. I think it was a pivotal moment in your life, and something came of it, but there's so much more to you, and I want to be clear to anybody who's listening. There's just so much substance to you. And I don't want to focus only on that story, but I do want to just take you back to that story a little bit so that people can learn from it. I think there's a lot of value in that. And when you spoke to me about it, it really spoke volumes. So can I take you back to the time in Waterloo playing football? Tell me a bit about that.
So it all kind of started before I went to Waterloo. I went to a prep school in Virginia called Fork Union Military Academy. When I decided to go there, I wanted to obviously had the ambitions on playing Division I football, NCAA. Unfortunately, my grades just weren't good enough, so I wasn't able to accept any scholarships. So then when I decided to go do Fork Union Military Academy, a lot of the Canadian schools were like, you're not going to make it, or just come to us, we're going to help you out. The only school that kind of gave me their blessing was University of Waterloo. They said, okay, go ahead and try, and if it doesn't work out, then, you know, come back and you're more than welcome to try out for our team and be on our team. So when I came back from Fork Union Military Academy, it didn't work out. They were the first school I contacted. If you don't know much about athletics, Waterloo is more of an academic school with their math and their science program. I'm not the top athletic or academic, student. So I decided to go there based on just, the coaching. We had 2 previous high-level CFL coaches, so I knew that I'd be able to go there. So our first season went pretty well. I think we made the playoffs, unfortunately losing in the first round. But I knew that football was my ticket. So I decided to, how can I get bigger and stronger in the off season? With sports, it's always about what have you done lately? So I remember one time, we're doing a bench press competition, like for our testing, and the guy gets 18 reps. And last time he tested, he got 14. Coach is going ecstatic. He's excited. I get 26, and then I get 28. Oh, you only got up by 2 reps. I go, yeah, but I'm doing 10 more than the next guy behind me. It's always, they want you to improve and improve and improve, which I get, but it comes to a time where the human body can be pushed so much. So I decided, I look at my peers in the NFL, CFL, things like that. These guys are bigger, stronger, faster, and they weigh more. I said they must be taking something or have an advantage somewhere else. So I decided to take steroids and human growth hormone. So we get called in one morning after a team testing, and we have our coach stand in front of us and said, guys, please bear with us. We're going to test the full team for blood and urine. This is on March 31st. He told us that one of our players got caught, and I guess he was selling furniture on Kijiji. So when the police searched his house, they found $20,000 worth of steroids and human growth hormone. With all that being found, they decided to maybe test a full football team and see if he was selling to them. Out of, I think, 60 players, 9 of us got caught for steroids, but I was the only one who got caught for human growth hormone, which is the first person in North America to get caught. So the test is only, I guess, detectable for about 24 hours. I got tested at 9 a.m. I took it at 7 a.m. And the morning of, I had this weird feeling like, you know what, maybe I shouldn't do it. I was already running late for my practice, but I decided, no, you know what, like I'm going to take the extra time and I'm going to do it. So as soon as they said they're going to test our full team, it was, my face went white and everyone's kind of like looking at me because without knowing, like I was 260 pounds playing university football and I was very quick and fast. And so they kind of knew that, I was on it without being said. So yeah, after we got tested, I knew it was kind of the end for me there. During that time, when they told me I tested positive, we had an arbitration time for me to appeal my suspension. Even though it was 1 failed test, it was 2 drugs, so they tried to make an example out of me. So they gave me 4-year suspension, which later went down to 3 years.
But obviously a lot of your identity was tied up in there. Or am I wrong? Did this affect your identity in any way?
Well, yeah, like you mentioned, especially being from a small town, things tend not to change. So you can go back to my small town now and it's the same people working the same job for the last 20 years and they're okay with doing that. So when I go back and visit, it's like that day is relived every single time. And it's like they haven't moved on, but I've moved on and done so much more.
You went on to duplicate success from football into MMA. So clearly there's an individual at play who's constantly perfecting their skills. And tell me about how you discipline yourself to succeed in multiple areas of performance.
Well, I think it's important to whatever you do is to get absolutely obsessed with it. So for me, like when I was ready to do MMA, that was the only thing that I ever focused on, was just that. And I came to the point where I moved to a province that I didn't know the language to. And I just, I would bounce and figure out ways to make money just so I could continue to fight. And, eventually it would pay off. But I mean, if you want something, you have one life to live, you might as well just go out and just do it.
Yeah, because that's an interesting point, because when I look at you, big guy, like you said yesterday that somebody had thought that you were your client's bodyguard, and because that's how you look, and you're covered in tattoos. I don't really judge a book by its cover. However, the cover is, this is a pretty tough guy. But tell me about the tattoos.
Yeah, so I ended up getting my first tattoo. My mom took me when I was 17. And I never was really into tattoos much. And then all of a sudden I got my first one, and, I enjoyed it. I mostly just enjoyed the positive feedback of people like looking and being like, wow, that looks amazing. And then I was like, if I get another one, then maybe they'll think that one's amazing too. So then I kept getting more and more and more. And then, there's been spans of, 5 years when I first moved here. I didn't get any. I go through different phases in my life where sometimes I'm in a super, positive place. I'll get more positive tattoos. And then when I'm more of a negative place, I get more like, not negative tattoos, but more tattoos are maybe more like how I'm feeling, in a sense of like not darker, but more like not as happy or as like joyful as I normally am, because I, just like anyone else, like I have two sides. I want people to see that both sides of me, not just like the one playful side. I also have like a, sad and upset side as well.
Matt, tell me, now back to, I just going one more time back to your transition coming to Montreal after your experience in Waterloo. I think sometimes people have a tendency to feel that change and self-reinvention is like an Instagram quote, like just the hard times, we all rise from from the darkest places, the greatest things happen. And though I agree with that, I think there's people who enter those dark areas of life and sometimes don't emerge better.
Yeah, you know what? I think it's important to, understand and read those quotes, but you also need to apply as well. There's been tons of times where I look for those inspirations. A lot of the things is I love listening to motivational quotes like Inky Johnson or Eric Thomas or motivational people like that. But at the end of the day, it has to come from within. You have to do it yourself. No one's going to, pick you up for you or, move forward. There was a time where, I was just, very depressed and sleeping all the time and drinking and fighting and just very angry person inside.
This is shortly after what had transpired in Waterloo?
Exactly. So after Waterloo and being suspended, it was just like I had no identity. Like I was always Matt the football player, and then I was just like this guy who tested positive, this bad person. And like I said, being in a small town, you can't go to the gas station without seeing 25 people or the grocery store. My mom worked at a drugstore, so it's very tough to even go about your town, to your day to day, without everyone reminding you on what you did.
I think that is common, isn't it? Where when people have done something, even if you're very young, at the time you were very young, but you'd still done football for many years. And I think this is an issue that even CEOs in companies who are let go through this spiral where they're trying to reinvent themselves. They feel that they've done something for so long, and then when you strip that away, they're trying to find the identity. It can put people in a very dark place. So I guess, yeah, drinking and fighting could be one, especially for a young man at the time. And do you feel that today you go through those dark times? Is there is there times where you're transitioning into something different, where there's those dark moments that you had when you were younger? Do you feel there's any reminiscence of that, or
I think I'll always have those type of like maybe traits that I possess, but I think it's important to not be friends with them, but know that they're there. So it's important that when you see that happen, I'm a huge advocate of when something that I feel, I don't suppress it. I let it kind of not take me over, but I let it like live through me. So when I'm depressed and I'm sad, like I'll be depressed and I'll be sad and I'll let that emotion kind of run through me, and then I'll deal with it as it's happening. I don't try to suppress it or try to change my mood or things like that. I think it's important to live through it, see how you feel and how you can better yourself.
Are there tools that you use to navigate those times of life? Is it training or?
For me, a lot of people tend to train when they get upset. For me, my mind is the biggest advocate. So if my mind is, I do a lot of strength training. So there's a huge gap in between my squats. Let's say it's a 3-minute gap. And the whole time that 3 minutes is going, I'm thinking about whatever's on my mind. So for me, I have to be able to run. I love teaching. When I'm teaching boxing or training people, I think about absolutely nothing but the session itself. So I tend to maybe be a little more down on days that I don't work as much. If I work a 10-hour day, I don't think about anything, and it's the best day ever. When I have 1 or 2 clients, I start thinking about maybe no one wants to train with me, maybe I'm not a good trainer anymore, and all these thoughts start coming through my mind, even though it's just because I'm not busy, and I have to keep. My mom always says, an idle mind is a devil's playground.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I share that, and definitely, Matt. If I'm busy and I'm in my flow and I'm just doing great, but the moment I get the time on my hands, it's just I seem to go into these places in my head that are just not productive at all. And so I guess some people say, well, you got to slow down, and I personally feel that in that rhythm, I'm very positive. I'm actually more positive. I'm the busier I am, the more I'm giving, the more I understand things around me. It's like you see the picture more clearly when you're in your zone, right? When you're just working hard and doing things, and it doesn't mean your life's off balance just because you're working hard, correct?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's important to stay busy and active, and either you're active through work, or you're active through exercise, or you're reading, or you're bettering yourself somehow. I think it's important to keep your mind moving and active instead of sitting there and dwelling on what you're going through. What
would you say are your greatest skills or tools that you use for your betterment, like just to make yourself a better person? What would you say are like your powers?
Definitely comedy are my powers.
Yeah.
No, people think it's like more of a defense mechanism or a coping mechanism to make everything into a joke, but it's honestly it's if you can't laugh at yourself what you're going through, I mean, you can't really deal with it. You kind of have to take one day at a time and kind of go through there.
Do you find that because of your career and what you do for a living, that there's this expectation on you to be, say, like with your Instagram stories, eating a box of cookies, do you feel that people don't get that?
Well, I feel like people are either all in or all out. Like, I think it's important to have that balance. And everyone thinks all I do is eat cookies or pizza. And at one point, yeah, sometimes I do only eat cookies and pizza, but I mean, I also have a daily balance of, I enjoy salads and chicken and things like that, but that's not pleasing to see. No one wants to see a green salad. They'd rather see some s'more Oreos.
I think I agree. That would be me posting the green salads. If I ate a box of s'mores, I'd be looking very different these days. Yeah. When you're out and doing your daily action, then you're tattooed up, looking tough. How do you network with people? How do you find that people network with you because you feel that they might be intimidated by you? How do you think that affects them?
Definitely. Like, anytime I go to a grocery store, I always get, those stares or people looking at me in a different way. And in my mind, I just wish that they were able to like have a conversation with me and to understand like who I am as a person and not just like how they see me. The funniest thing is lately I've been training a lot of older clients in their 70s and 80s and things like that. So as I go out through my normal day, because it's a very close community, I'll go out and I'll see maybe 2 or 3 older ladies that I train, and people are looking at me like, how does he know this 75-year-old woman? Like, shouldn't she be scared for her life? And I'm like helping her because we're friends, because she knows who I am. And we've been training, and it's always very different when we first start training a new client, because I know how I look and how people perceive me to be. Then after, you can see they're kind of like, hesitant, because I do in-home training. So I go to their house, I meet their family, and I'm in their house, and I can kind of see, not that they're uneasy, but they're more just like, never had anyone look like me, maybe that close to them. So I could tell maybe they're a little uneasy, but honestly, it takes 3 seconds until I open my mouth. You realize that like, I'm not just some trainer off the street. Like, I have a good education, good background, good morals, and like, I'm just here to help people reach their goals.
You told me you actually are at your clients' houses sometimes, and you're having breakfast with the kids and the family. Yeah.
So I have this one client. Every time I go in the morning, his wife has breakfast for me and his 2 children. And as he's getting ready to box, I'm having breakfast with a 6 and a 3-year-old, and we're just talking about school and their coloring books and things like that. And they love all my tattoos, and they wish they could draw on themselves too.
That must be awesome just to see that happening. So, okay. Now I'm just getting super curious about asking a couple of questions that I just always want to ask somebody. When you get in a ring and you're like about to get punched, man, and you're about to give it out, you're like, what's going through your head?
Well, playing football, you have the 11 other guys behind you. So you're walking out to the ring before your fight. You're pretty excited, and then your coach says, "Okay, good luck." And you go, wait, you're not coming with me. So you step in the cage, but to be honest, as soon as that cage closes, it's like a different person takes over. Just as you would if you were to play hockey, step on the ice, like a different person shows up. And the feeling of, everyone goes, yeah, you might get hit. I go, yeah, but I also get to hit him too. Like, it's a 50-50 chance. And some people don't like taking those chances. They're like, sure things, or if we fail, we fail as a team. I love individual sports in that aspect. If I lost, I put it on myself, no one else but me. But there's literally no better feeling than just looking across the ring and just being like, I get to, fight this person.
Hey, tell me though, I listened in when you and I first talked, and I said, okay, I'm going to go Google Matt Socholotiuk, and I mean, man, you like popped right up there, and there it was, Waterloo, and I'm like, damn, like, this guy's doing so much with his life, and it's just always like this. We got to pump this podcast up so this takes #1 hit. It does. I mean, because what really is disturbing is you've done so much, and that sits at the top. And what's up there with it is this interview that you had with a reporter, and you talked to me a little bit about that. You said she called you, and I don't even want to talk about the interview, because you people can go listen to it if they want, because I want to give you an opportunity right now to just say, what would you have really liked to say during that interview?
Well, as we talked previously, kind of talked about, I wanted people to kind of see a different side. All they saw was, this football player being banned for steroids. So they automatically assume maybe I'm not a good person, bad judgment, things like that. So when I did this interview, I wanted to sound or come off as if like I'm not this bad person. I'm very remorseful, which I am, but she kind of took it as like taking shots at me instead. Like, why would you do this? It was almost like we were going through a breakup and I did something wrong, and she was just yelling at me.
Yeah.
And no, I'm saying, okay, like if I get aggressive or I get angry and lash out, oh, are you still on steroids? Maybe you're angry, maybe you're aggressive now. So it literally was a lose-lose situation. I left the studio with like this like puzzled look of like, I don't know what even happened. It was very confusing.
You know what? I'm going to like really, I'm going to give you a compliment right on that, is that showed that you were kind of owning your decision. Like we know that you just said remorseful, and I'm not on that with you. I don't think you need to be remorseful about it by any means, but what I do love that you made this decision. The reporter is coming down on you. You realize you were able to put it together like right on the spot. You're like, okay, if I turn into a raging crazy man, then now everybody's just going to be, oh, there he is. There's the raging growth hormone guy.
Exactly.
So you were able to, like, I hated to hear you like in the interview like that, but doesn't it bug you that you kind of deserve to be in this position? Because we make a choice, then you get caught, something happens, and you find yourself having to like be a certain way so that people don't like judge you even more.
Yeah, it was definitely like an awkward situation. And looking back on it now, like I can't even remember the interview. It was such a daze, and you know, like she would just call through the phone. I thought she was going to be in front of me, and you know, it was just very like just very rude tone and everything she asked, very condescending.
Yeah. But again, just a big shout out to you for just being able to put the whole story together and say, listen, I got to be here and take my licks, because if I act any other way, it's just going to be more confirmation for everybody. So I'm just going to grin and bear it. And it was painful to see you have to sit through that kind of interview, but you know that you handled it well. And I think you handled it the only way you could. And then it's about moving on and reestablishing your relationship, or reestablishing your identity, but also your reputation. Now, you and I talked a little bit about reputation. What's reputation mean to you?
You know, it's how people they see you and how they describe you, and you know what your overall, like, I guess, aura is. I like to say that I have a good reputation in my community. You know, I'm hardworking, I'm polite, I'm on time. You know, traits that everyone should. You know, you should be on time. You should be polite to people, because I know how I would want to be treated as a client. I think it's also important to put yourself in their shoes as well, and to kind of see. You know, they're paying for a service. As a personal trainer, you're in the service industry. It's important that you give them a good service, no matter how talented you are, how much you know more than they do. I think it's very disrespectful when you start speaking down to people.
When our reputation gets damaged, like, and one of the conversations you and I had when we first met was about how reputation is everything. And when your reputation gets damaged, for whatever reason, good, whether it's justified or not, there's this path to rebuilding your reputation. And it's a very painful path. It's really just full of self-doubt. It's full of anxiety. How did you navigate the path to becoming Matt of today versus this Matt who was literally getting his reputation thrown in the garbage?
So when you talk about self-doubt, like I am the exact example of when I have a coach and he says, you know what, you suck, you're not doing very well. I say, yeah, you're probably right. I probably do suck. So I need very positive people around me. I learned very early that it's very important to have positive influences in your life, almost like pump up people. But obviously they're telling you the truth. But those friends will also tell you when you're messing up, hey, you need to smarten up, and you know, because they're looking out for you for who they know you can be. It's important to, you know, always like, you know, be who you say you are. Like if you say you're honest and trustworthy, like be that person, be true to who you are. And I think, you know, it happens a lot when people get into a new job or into a new relationship. You're like a fake person for 6 months. And the unfortunate thing is I'm the same person from year 1 as I am from year 10, 20. It doesn't matter. So you get the full me from day 1. And unfortunately, some people you meet, you don't meet the real person till they're 6 months to a year.
Yeah, I see the real you. The day I met you, which is not that long ago, there was this instant connection. I thought that you were a very real guy and you were very easy to talk to. And what I was I'll just repeat it. What I was most impressed with was your ability to just redefine yourself. Because to me, it's a major, I have this curiosity as to how some people are able to redefine themselves, become great at something different, and they just keep going. They get the pains, they get knocked down, but they keep going. And how would you, is it a drive towards success for you?
I think it's important to realize it doesn't happen overnight. Like, I got suspended 10 years ago, and it's been a very long journey of working on myself to be where I am today. It's not like I meet someone today, they go, I can't believe you went through that. Look at you today. Like, this is the final product, and I'm still growing as a person. But if you would have met me even 6 months ago, a year ago, I'm a completely different person, different mindset. So it's important to always continue to keep working on yourself until you're, you know, the best product that you can be. How
do you define success?
Wow, good question. I think success, some people measure it by, you know, wealth and things like that. I think there's a saying, it goes, health is a new wealth. I think it's important to be healthy. I think it's important to be healthy and happy. And overall, I'm a huge advocate of just doing what you want to do. I think it's important. If you want to, you know, get head tattoos, then get a head tattoo. If you want to go and, you know, wear a dress, wear a dress. I don't care. But if you're happy, at the end of the day, you have to look at yourself in the mirror. So as long as you're happy, because when you put your head on the pillow at the end of the day, if you're happy, you know you did everything you could, I think that's the most important thing. So success to me is going to bed with a smile on my face. So as long as you keep reinventing yourself, I mean, the past is always going to be there, but there's always the generation that didn't know that. So you keep building and moving forward, and eventually, you know, that thing goes in the past and you learn from it. As long as you learn from it, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
So in the time of, in modern day right now, we're exposed to constant quotes and social media, and we're bombarded by this. And, you know, I think there's people out there who say, man, I'm not feeling that. I see it all the time, and people talking about gratitude, and they do their gratitude journaling, and there's people who are really trying hard, and they're changing their lives, but they don't do that. They don't do some of the new things that are being like meditation is a big one, right? Everybody talks about, I meditate. It's an important part of my life. And I personally used to meditate a lot. I don't meditate so much anymore, but I do this magical thing called box breathing that I learned, and I do it daily, man. And that breathing in traffic or anywhere, it helps to calm me down. But I'm not much of a meditator. I used to. And so I think some people are putting it out that they're doing things that they're not actually practicing, because they feel that if they're not doing it, they're not serious about personal development and being the next level. Do you think that there's particular ways that people can practice self-care that aren't necessarily conforming to what we see as popular today?
I mean, I think a huge thing for self-care is obviously having a good nutrition and doing a good diet. As much as I, you know, say I eat cookies and pizza, which I do, but everything in moderation. I think it's important to also not only train your body, but also train your mind. I think it's important also to keep reading and to listening and to be open to new ideas. Some traits that fall past trainers or boxing coaches is they don't stay up with the times. I think it's important to, as the sport evolves, because every sport does that, is to also stay relevant in the sport and keep an open mind to new ideas, new suggestions, new topics and things like that.
Do you practice what I noticed that your head tattoo, what is that new, that's the newest one, right? Your head tattoo.
Yeah, so I got my head tattooed about 3 weeks ago, and I got praying hands, which is my very first tattoo that I got when I was 17 was also praying hands. My mom took me, which she probably regrets now. But that's one question that everyone always asks me. What do your parents think? What do your parents think? And the thing that always shocks me is my parents, like, they raised me. Of course they know who I am. They know that my tattoos don't define who I am or what I am. It's just an expression of myself, and that's it. So I always find it super hilarious when people go, your mom must just lose it when you get a new tattoo. And I have a skull in the back of my neck, and he has like crooked teeth, and all she said was he should have went to a dentist, and that's it.
The praying hands, is that something you do? Are you a spiritual person?
I mean, yeah, I went to a Southern Baptist school when I was in Virginia, and before I went there, my friend, he owned, his dad was a pastor at the church, and growing up, my dad was going to be a pastor as well. My mom worked in Sunday school, and they used to call me Pat Matt because I used to have a little like tape recorder, pretend I was also the pastor as well. I've always looked for like, I guess my inspirational quotes also come from a lot from the Bible, since I have Philippians 4:13 tattooed on my hands. But yeah, I mean, I'm spiritual, but not maybe as much as I should be. I guess I'm spiritual when things are tough, not necessarily when things go good. I don't give thanks as much as I should. I give more like, oh, things are going bad, I'm going to pray about it or read something to make it more positive.
All right. Do you have any message or any type of advice for anybody out there who's in the health fitness industry who might be trying to build up their business and trying to find their footing in all this?
Yeah, my advice would be just to stay consistent and keep, grinding it out every single day. Like I said, the product you see in front of you is years and years of practice. Even when I was in high school, I was training the football team. I would give them programs, and I was 17. Like, this is a passion. If you don't enjoy it, it's going to show through your work. So if you enjoy training people, the money's not always going to be there, but the passion will be there. I'd rather wake up and not make as much and be happy all day than go to a factory and make a little bit more and come home miserable.
Yeah, man. Where do you see Matt in 5 years from now?
Where do I see myself in 5 years? Well, I mean, eventually I'd like to have a family.
Do you have, let's start. Do you have a girlfriend?
No, I don't have a girlfriend yet.
He's single, ladies and gentlemen. Well, ladies and maybe gentlemen.
But I hopefully be running, a successful business by then. Obviously 5 years strong then. Hope be able to obviously employ other trainers and things like that, and kind of give them an opportunity to be as successful as I am, and kind of take them under my wing and help them move their business forward. My ultimate goal is to eventually have more than just one location and to open it up. And people always say, like, you train people at 5 a.m. Aren't you tired? And I was like, I'd rather be tired in my 30s and then have someone work for me when I'm in my 40s. Then I can relax. But knowing myself, I'll still get up when I'm 40 and still train and still teach, not because I need to, because I enjoy it. Teaching someone how to box and seeing the smile on their face, it's like I'm learning all over again. It's the best feeling. Yeah,
the true coach. So, Matt, what's something you can leave everybody with if they were trying to change their life, if they're whether they're trying to lose weight or get fit, or they're just in this bad place right now? Think back when you were in your situation back in Waterloo. There's a lot of people out there right now feeling just like that, and some of them aren't that strong. They could be strong if they get through it, because our strength, it's like training, right? The more we work a muscle, the stronger it gets, the bigger it gets, the more resistant it gets. Now, some people are going through the problems and they're not strong yet. So what can you give them?
I honestly think it's all about having a positive role model in your life. It's about having positive people around you. One thing my mom always says, which I got tattooed on me, it says one day at a time. So it's just, you take that day and you take it for what it is, and then the next day you deal with it when it comes. Sometimes I'd be so stressed out, I don't have money for this, money for that. And my mom would say, okay, just like go through today, and then tomorrow we'll worry about it. So I think it's important to take one day at a time, one moment at a time, and don't stress about things that might not come, because 95% of the time, those things don't happen. Your mind is going to just keep running over and over and over again to all these negative, dark places. But know that I think it's important to know that you're in that negative, dark place and come to grips with it and say, how can I get out of it? Living in denial is not going to help you get any further.
So, Matt, tell me, how can people get in touch with you? What's the best way for them to know Matt?
Yeah, so as we talked previously, I'm pretty active on Instagram. You can go ahead and follow me at boxing_trainer_MTL.
That'll all be in the show notes, guys, so be sure to check that out. So one last time, Matt, I just want to acknowledge you for your greatness. I think you're a terrific guy. I just was so excited to do this podcast with you. I hope I served you well, and it's really in the service of you that I asked you to come in and show people what an awesome guy this Matt Socholotiuk is. So check him out on Instagram. Again, that's all going to be in the show notes, guys. And Matt, thank you once again for being here.
Great, I appreciate it. Thank you.
You have an awesome day, everybody, and thank you for joining us here on Forked Podcast.